Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve. Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into our time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Western adventure this hour, Jimmy Stewart in an episode of The Six Shooter. This was originally broadcast 68 years ago today, January 10th, 1954, and the story of Hiram's Gold Strike. And we thank you for tuning in on this Monday. This is the 10th day of January. 355 days remaining in the year. Thomas Paine published Common Sense on this date in 1776. African-American slaves in Louisiana rebelled in two different parishes in 1811. Florida seceded from the Union on this date in 1861. And in 1870, John Rockefeller incorporated Standard Oil. The first great Texas gusher, oil discovered at Spindletop in Beaumont, Texas in 1901. The League of Nations held its first meeting in 1920 and ratified the Treaty of Versailles, ending World War I. The first General Assembly of the UN opened on this date in London in 1946, 51 nations represented. In 1967, President Johnson reported in his State of the Union address that the Vietnam War was not going well.
I wish I could report to you that the conflict is almost over. This I cannot do. We face more cost, more loss, and more agony. For the end is not yet. I cannot promise you that it will come this year or come next year. Our adversary still believes, I think tonight, that he can go on fighting longer than we can, and longer than we and our allies will be prepared to stand up and resist.
President Johnson on this date in 1967. After 147 years, Editor-in-Chief William Emerson announced the last issue of the Saturday Evening Post would be forthcoming. He made that announcement on this date in 1969.
My very sad duty tonight to announce that the Saturday Evening Post will cease publication with the February 8th issue of the Saturday Evening Post.
The Saturday Evening Post published weekly under the title from 1897 until 1963, then every 2 weeks until 1969. From the 20s until the 60s, it was one of the most widely circulated and influential magazines for the American middle class, with fiction, nonfiction, cartoons, and features that reached millions of homes every week. The Saturday Evening Post folded for 2 years, before being revived as a quarterly publication in 1971. It's now published 6 times a year by a nonprofit. Time Warner was formed on this date in 1990 from the merger of Time and Warner Communications. The original episode of The Sopranos aired on this date in 1999 on HBO. America Online announced an agreement to buy Time Warner, and that was the largest corporate merger to that date in history. North Korea withdrew from a global treaty barring it from making nuclear weapons in 2003. In 2005, CBS issued a damning independent review of mistakes related to a 60 Minutes Wednesday report on President George W. Bush's National Guard service. They couldn't get it right. And in 2007, President George W. Bush announced he would send a surge of 21,000 U.S. forces to Iraq. Passing away on this date in history, inventor Samuel Colt, the inventor of the Colt 45, comedian actor Joe Penner, Wanna Buy a Duck, the man behind Sam Spade and the Thin Man, Dashiell Hammett, French fashion designer Coco Chanel, actor Richard Boone, who had done so much, in the early days of television, he did a television program called Medic, and he also was the original on television, in the original period, Have Gun Will Travel. He was the original Paladin. Also comedian Paul Lynde, Producer, actor, director Sheldon Leonard, whom you hear on so many of the great shows. You hear him as the racetrack tout on the Jack Benny shows, and you hear him on the Martin and Lewis shows. Also, actor and screenwriter Spalding Gray passing away on this date. Singer Margaret Whiting and David Bowie and Buddy Greco all passing away on this date in history. This is the birth date of actor-dancer Ray Bolger, singer Giselle McKenzie, singer Johnny Ray, Cry, Roy Edward Disney, film executive, a relative of Walt. Also, actor Sal Mineo, born on this date. Singer Jim Croce, Frank Sinatra Jr., born on this date, and actress-singer Teresa Graves. This is birthday number 77 for Rod Stewart. Do you think he's sexy? I don't know. Also, the man who was known by wrestling fans as the hated Colonel de Beers, Ed Wazowski, born in St. Joseph, Missouri. He is 77 today and still, as I understand, training wrestlers. From Steely Dan, Donald Fagen is 74. Boxer and grill maker George Foreman is 73. Singer Pat Benatar, 69. The wife of Wayne Gretzky, actress Janet Jones, is 61. Couple of wrestlers in the mix today. Marcus Alexander Bagwell, 52. And the Tamina Snuka is 44. And Mr. Ivanka Trump, Jared Kushner, is 41. Those just a few of the people who celebrate the 10th day of January as their birthday. And if this happens to be your birthday...
Hi, we're the Four Freshmen, and we just want to say, Happy birthday to you!
And from 68 years ago, January 10th, 1954, Jimmy Stewart as the six-shooter on this Monday Classic Radio Theater on your favorite station.
What does it mean to be an American? Just what are our American values? Working hard to succeed, loving God, country, and family, being honest, strong, and compassionate.
Supporting our Constitution and recognizing that we are blessed to be living in America, the greatest country in the world.
Our Bill of Rights protects us, our freedoms of worship, speech, and privacy, our right to own firearms, our right to trial by jury.
Our right to be free, to live our own lives without some bureaucrat telling us what to do. Most countries don't have these rights.
Want to know more? It's all there in the book. Get your own free book, The U.S. Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Then read it again, and this time share it with your friends. Our great Constitution is the basis of all of our freedoms, our inalienable rights. Get your own copy at freeusbook.com.
Brought to you by the American Media Council.
Just a reminder to you, our podcast name has changed. If you've been looking for USA Classic Radio Theater, start looking for Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. You'll find our shows there, and always on time and always on top of the situation. Now an episode of The Six Shooter starring Jimmy Stewart, as it was broadcast 68 years ago this Monday, January 10th, 1954.
James Stewart as the Six Shooter. The man in the saddle is angular and long-legged. His skin is sun-dyed brown. The gun in his holster is gray steel and rainbow mother of pearl. Its handle unmarked. People call them both the Six Shooter. The NBC Radio Network presents James Stewart as the Six Shooter, a transcribed series of radio dramas based on the life of Britt, the Texas plainsman who wandered through the Western Territories, leaving behind a trail of still-remembered legends.
About 4 o'clock in the afternoon when I rode out of the Saucer Mountains and hit the flat, and the Scar stretched his legs and went into a high lope. He seemed real anxious to get across the 8 miles of prairie between the hills and Clay City. Oh, easy, boy. Easy now. Hey, what's your rush? I don't know. Maybe he was hungry, maybe he was thirsty, or maybe... Oh, no. No, it couldn't be that. Why, it was over 6 months since our last visit at Clay City. Scar couldn't still be remembering the filly from the livery stable, not after all that time, no. Besides, horses don't have memories, at least not as good as... Now, you just slow down, boy, now, quit. Well, there wasn't anything I could do except just keep a tight rein on him, I guess. Something sure was spurring Scar along. Whatever it was important. At least it was to him. Well, we'd covered about half the distance to town when I noticed a couple of dark specks, maybe a mile or so ahead of us. And the way they were shaped and the way they were barely moving, well, they just about had to be pack burros. But it wasn't until we almost caught up that I spotted Hiram. And he was beating one of those burros with a cottonwood switch and giving it such a cuss that he didn't even hear us riding up toward him. Easy, Scar.
Right, you
easy now.
rat-tailed canary. You start traveling, I'll set fire to you. And I don't... I'm not fooling. I'm warning you. I'll give you such a burning that you won't be able to...
Oh, Hiram.
Where'd you come... Oh, Britt, for a second there, you kind of startled me. I didn't know you was on my tail.
The burros been acting up, Hiram?
Oh, they're just being themselves, Britt.
No.
That's the trouble, they're just being themselves.
Yeah, I sure know what you mean.
Where you heading, Clay City?
That's right.
I heard you was riding herd for the Circle G. Last time I was in getting some supplies, you told me. Are you going to town on business?
No, the ranch gave me a day off, tomorrow being 4th of July.
4th of July? Well, I'll be cussed. 4th of July. I've been out in the hills so long I lost all track of time. I didn't even know what month it was. Not for certain. See, you're going to do a little celebrating, huh?
Well, I just thought
come to think of it, I got me something to celebrate, too. And it's more than just Independence Day, Britt. It's a darn sight more.
Is that so?
Oh, yes. If these critters don't stop barking, it'll be Christmas before we ever get to Clay City. All right, Pierre, come on, start moving. Come on. Yeah, that's it. Now, you too, Yvette. Both of you, come on.
Hey, what was that you called them, Hiram?
What's that?
Well, it sounded like Pierre.
Oh, sure. That's their name, Pierre and Yvette.
Oh, no.
Well, what's the matter? They're perfectly respectable names. I seen a show once in Denver called the Paris Review. That was the title of it, from Paris, France. And there was a couple of dancers. Well, sir, if they didn't put on a jig. I'm telling you, Britt, it sure was something. The fella, he just picked up this girl and he threw her every which way. I thought she was going to land right in my lap.
Oh, you did?
Yes, that's the truth, every word. And this here girl dancing with him, she kept coming back for more, like she enjoyed being used for a lasso. Yes, Pierre and Yvette. That's what they was called. It was on a sign out in front of the Tabor Grand Opera House. Those names always kind of stuck with me. So when I bought these burros, well... You know bears, they ain't very particular about what you call them.
No.
Now, you just keep moving, Pierre. Come on, keep moving. That's it.
That's quite a load you're carrying there, Hiram.
It sure is.
Well, I guess I'll ride on. Maybe see you in town, huh?
Hold up a minute, Britt. Ain't you going to ask me what's in them bags?
Well, no, I just figured it wasn't any of my business.
Well, I'm going to tell you anyhow.
Oh?
If I don't tell somebody, I'll bust. Besides, I know I can trust you. Yeah, whoop here. Britt, I've struck it. I've made a strike the like of which I never even dreamed of.
Oh? Easy, Scar.
Look at now. You see this here sack right here?
Yeah.
This one right here? If it don't assay out to over $1,000...
$1,000?
That ain't the half of it. There's plenty more where this come from.
Well, that sure sounds good.
It is good. Well, I just bet the vein I find delivers more gold in a year than they ever took out of California.
Is that so? Well, you sure are entitled to a strike, Hiram. You've been prospecting for quite a spell.
Yeah, I sure have. 45 years, Britt.
Yeah.
45 years, come winter. But I ain't got no regrets. Not now, I ain't. I told them in Clay City. I told them all there was gold in the Saucer Mountains. Oh, I could smell it. Just the way my birds sniff water. But they wouldn't listen, no. They said old Hiram was catched, that I'd never find nothing but yellow-colored rocks. Yeah. Well, start singing a different song now.
Oh, you're sure it's gold you found?
Oh, you think I don't know it when I see it? You mark my words. Old Hiram has turned up the real thing. Of course, you mustn't let the news out.
Oh.
Not until after I get my assay report and file my claim.
Oh, sure.
But I just wish there was some other assay office around here.
What's that?
Well, that Enoch Wilson. He wouldn't know a gold nugget from a tea kettle. And what's more, I don't trust him. I don't trust him a bit.
Well, no, Hiram, you know...
Some of the samples I brought him in before looked mighty good to me, but not to Enoch. I don't think he even tested him. Now, just let him try to say that this batch is worth it. Yeah, just let him try to say that.
I don't know what's the matter with Scar. He sure is restless.
Well, then you go on ahead, Britt. Just go on ahead.
Well, I guess I might as well. Easy, boy, easy. I hope everything works out the way you expect, Hiram.
Don't you worry yourself about that.
Nice run into you.
Mutual, Britt, mutual. All righty, Dick. Come on. You can't eat that cactus. Get your nose out of there. I'll give you a taste of something worse than that.
The sun was just going down when we got to Clay City. I figured on stopping at the hotel first, making sure of a bed, but Scar had other ideas. He headed right straight for the livery stable. There just wasn't any doubt about it. He'd remembered that filly. Yes, sir. And mind you, I'm not saying that a horse can really get a disappointed expression on his face, but I'll tell you this much. Scar gave a pretty good imitation of it when he saw a big roan stallion occupying what had been that filly's stall. Well, I left him there anyway, and I got myself supper in a room. And about 9 o'clock, I started feeling sleepy, you know. I just pulled off my boots. Oh, yeah. Doggone it, man. Sure does get tired and stays up late. Holy smoke, what's that? Oh, those shots right outside my window. I grabbed my gun and and then I saw I wouldn't be needing the gun. A couple of kids shooting off Chinese firecrackers. That's what I heard. Well, it didn't look like I was going to get much sleep that night. And the way things worked out, I sure didn't. Well, yeah? Who is it?
Hiram, Britt. I got to talk to you. It's important.
Well, come on in.
Oh, thanks, Britt. Thank you.
What's the matter? What's the matter? You look like you're getting ready for a real hard winter or something.
Enoch Wilson. That's what's the matter. Remember, Britt, I told you I didn't trust him? Do you remember that one? Yes, well, I got me some proof. What's in
It's just some firecrackers, Hiram. And Enoch, he says you haven't found gold.
No. He ain't said nothing one way or the other. But by the time I got the birds into town tonight, it was almost 7 o'clock. Enoch was just closing up the assay office.
Uh-huh.
But I give him them sacks of gold, you see, and I said I wanted a report as soon as possible. And you know what he told me?
I can't say as I do, no.
Friday. He says I couldn't have no word before late Friday. Why, Britt, that's 2 days off.
Well, tomorrow being a holiday.
Well, that's the excuse he tried to hand me to. Oh, that lying skunk.
No. You know, the 4th of July is a pretty important occasion.
Well, that don't give him the right to tell me a whole pack of lies, does it?
No.
Well, of course it doesn't. No. Anyhow, I had to leave my gold with him. I didn't have no choice. So I got me a bowl of Irish beef stew over at the O'Brien's Cafe, and then I went back to see about the burros. And that's when I noticed the light in Enoch's office.
Oh?
Yeah, so naturally, I was kind of suspicious, so I snuck up and I peeked through the window. You know what I saw, Britt?
I haven't the faintest idea.
He was sitting at the desk, Enoch himself, getting ready to do some assaying. And if those weren't my 3 sacks of gold in front of him, I'll trade you a whole hog for a slice of bacon. That's what I'll do.
Well, supposing Enoch was testing your ore, that doesn't prove anything.
Don't you see, Britt? He's fixing to take my ore for himself. And once he makes up his mind how valuable it is, he'll do a little substituting. And I'll wind up with 3 bags of rocks when I come in to see him on Friday.
Oh, now.
Probably aims to find out where I got it, too. Oh, yes. File the claim himself.
No, now that doesn't sound very likely.
Then why did he say it'd be Friday before he'd know anything? Why'd he tell me that if he was planning to work tonight?
Well, if you're so upset about it, you should have just come right straight out and asked him.
I'm going to ask you, Britt. That's just what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask him. But I want you there when I confront him.
Me?
Enoch's already lied to me once today, but if you're with me, if he sees you're my friend, maybe he'll think twice before he tries anything funny. Maybe I'll get a decent assay for a change.
Well, I'm afraid I don't understand where I come in.
Enoch knows you, don't he? Knows that you're the 6-shooter?
Well, we've met up a couple of times.
Yes, well, come on then, but let's get over there while we can catch him red-handed.
Wait a minute, now, hold on.
Britt, you know how much this strike means to me. You ain't gonna let anybody swindle me out of it.
No.
Hurry up. We ain't got all night.
All right. Just give me a chance to tuck in my shirt tail. Now, you just remember one thing, Hiram. This wasn't my idea.
Sure.
Remember that.
Who is it? What do you want? Hiram Garver. That's who it is. And Britt Poncett's with me, too. So you better get this door open.
Now, Hiram, you just remember.
Howdy, Britt. What's the trouble?
Well, I,
There you are,
over here
Britt.
with...
There you are. There. You see right there? See? Them are my sacks.
Of course they're your sacks, Hiram.
You see, he denied it, either.
Hiram, are you going loco or something?
I'll do the asking, Enoch. You'll do the answering from now on. And you better not lie in front of Britt Ponceett either.
Huh?
I thought you said you wasn't going to be able to assay this horror before Friday.
What if I did?
It appears like you changed your mind, doesn't it? Well, Britt wants to know the reason.
Well, it was just that you were kind of anxious, that's all. And your stuff did look a little more promising than usual.
What'd I tell you, Britt? Yeah, what'd I tell you? Yeah, he knew it was good.
I said it looked promising, Hiram.
Promising enough so you try to cheat me out of it, eh? Well, you're not getting there with it, Enoch. The six-shooter here will see to that.
Now, just hold on.
Hiram Grover, I ought to throw you right out of my office.
Another Howard McNear sighting there as Hiram. Jimmy Stewart is a six-shooter, January 10th, 1954 on Classic Radio Theater. The news from this date in history comes up next. Well, you've heard me talk about Mike Lindell, the inventor of MyPillow, and how his pillow's given me a great night's sleep. He continues to roll out new offers on his products. His latest on the towel sets. Now, towels aren't something you think about. I never knew what I was missing till I tried the towels last year. You've all helped build MyPillow into the incredible company it is today, and trust in Mike Lindell has given you a better night's sleep. Mike's now changing the game with a 6-piece towel set, USA cotton, extremely absorbent, yet still providing that soft feel you look for in a towel. 2 bath, 2 hand towels, 2 washcloths for a limited time, $39.95. Using our promo code USA, it retails for over $100. Remember, all MyPillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the Radio Listeners Square, use this promo code USA to get this price of $39.99 on the towels, or call 1-800-951-8175. Thanks for making us a part of your Monday here on Classic Radio Theater. We're listening to an episode of The Six Shooter starring Jimmy Stewart, as it was originally broadcast on Sunday, January 10th, 1954. In the newspapers of that Sunday, 68 years ago, these were some of the headlines. The UN field commander said yesterday his 8th Army is waiting now for the January 23rd release of 22,000 Chinese and North Koreans from an anti-Red prison camp, and any communist armed move to intervene would risk resuming the Korean War. Red China bitterly opposes the release, and last night in Peking, that nation's number 2 communist assailed it as a coordinated armed action on the part of the United Nations Command. He made no mention of any Red plan to resort to military force in behalf of former Red soldiers who so far have not returned to communism. Democrats will urge Congress to increase the personal income tax exemption from $600 to $700 as part of the big tax revision program now taking shape. That from congressional sources. Such an increase would mean a loss of revenue to the government of some $2.5 billion a year. President Eisenhower told Congress Thursday, "We must thoroughly revise our whole tax system." He said he has 25 recommendations ready to present in his budget message. It was reported in congressional quarters that Eisenhower will recommend, among other tax changes, that Congress reduce some federal excise taxes, including the 20% admissions tax. The president vetoed a bill last August to eliminate the tax on movie admissions. Detroit and Canadian authorities yesterday locked in a grim race with the Detroit underworld to find a 33-year-old French-Canadian, Don Ritchie, the fleet-footed key witness to the solution of the 1948 assassination attempt on CIO President Walter Reuther. For some, as yet unknown reasons, Ritchie eluded 2 police guards at a downtown Detroit hotel Friday and fled into hiding in Canada. Vice President Nixon reported to be advising top administration officials against any change in the U.S. policy of non-recognition of Red China. Informed sources said yesterday Nixon has told government leaders that recognizing the Peiping regime or granting it a United Nations seat would jeopardize efforts to contain Chinese communism. Nixon stressed this point in briefing 40 top State Department officials Friday on his 45,000-mile fact-finding trip to Asia. Senate investigators reported yesterday that communist atrocities in Korea were, and we're quoting, one of the most heinous and barbaric epochs of recorded history, and urged the Senate to request a full United Nations inquiry. The Senate Investigation Subcommittee charged Chinese and North Korean communists with crimes including mass murder, forced starvation, torture, and experimental medical operations. It said statistics indicated that the war crimes killed approximately 2/3 of all American prisoners of war. Senator Stuart Symington of the Democrat of Missouri says the Eisenhower administration has admitted its cut in the nation's air power was a tragic mistake and has cost taxpayers 2 years in time and over $1 billion in wasted money. In a speech before a Democrat rally, Symington said the Republican administration less than 6 months ago was fighting bitterly before Congress to justify cutting 23 wings from the Air Force 143-wing program. Symington, a former Secretary of the Air Force, said the Eisenhower administration has now put back into the new program the same number of combat wings formerly in the 143-wing program. Mrs. Frances Supine, a wealthy grandmother who spent a half year in a Carlsbad, New Mexico jail, has promised to stay in here the rest of my life if that's what it takes to get justice. The 51-year-old woman was sent to jail for an indefinite stay last July when she refused to pay the fine assessed for renting a garage apartment behind her $25,000 home in violation of a court injunction. Mrs. Supine, a 110-pound divorcee, has admitted that restrictive real estate agreements in the fashionable Carlsbad district where she lives prohibit rentals, but she said she did not rent the apartment but used it to house people who worked for her. And those some of the day's top news stories as reported in the newspapers of Sunday, January 10th, 1954, on your radio, Jimmy Stewart as the six-shooter, which continues now on Classic Radio Theater.
If I was trying to cheat you, would I have sent word for you to stop in tomorrow morning before the parade and get your assay report?
You sent word?
You just asked Mike O'Brien. I was over at his cafe looking for you. You'd already left, though. I told him if he saw you to give him the message.
You told Mike?
Well, Hiram?
Well, doggone it, Britt, how was I to know?
You think he might have stumbled into something, Enoch? Real strike?
Well, I ain't positive yet, Britt, but some of the samples are mighty encouraging. A couple more tests.
Evening, gentlemen.
Who are you?
Don't turn around. Just grab for some air. All three of them.
Well, now, you just wait a minute.
Do a little stretching before we... That's better.
It was real considerate of you to stay open tonight, mister. Saved us the trouble of breaking it.
All right, Dad. Let's start loading up.
January 10th, 1954, The Six Shooter. On this Monday edition of Classic Radio Theater, I'm Wyatt Cox. The conclusion next on your favorite radio station.
You know, if you feel like you're stuck with a health care plan you don't like, right now is a great time to switch to MediShare. They'll waive your new member fee if you join by January 15th. So that's $170 in addition to all the other savings. The typical family saves $500 or more per month. And MediShare has double the customer satisfaction rate when compared to health insurance. Double. Again, join by January 15th and save even more. Call 833-34-BIBLE. That's 833-34-BIBLE.
On Tuesday's Classic Radio Theater, Jack Webb in an episode of Dragnet from 69 years ago, January 11th, 1953, The Big Small. A little old lady check forger plaguing the city, but there's more to the old lady than meets the eye. That's coming up on Tuesday's Classic Radio Theater, but now the conclusion of The Six Shooter, starring Jimmy Stewart from 68 years ago, January 10th, 1954.
Now, Act 2 of The Six Shooter, starring James Stewart as Britt Ponsett.
Guys in leather jackets, both carrying .45s. They're about the same build, same color, and look enough like to be brothers. They hadn't bothered covering their faces. That meant that they weren't worrying about being recognized. Probably didn't come from Clay City. The tall one gave most of the orders.
Who's running this office? Will somebody speak up?
I do the assaying.
That's more like it. And you'd be the fellow who'd know how to open this safe.
Well, ain't really nothing worth...
Cut out the stalling, mister. Get over here. Move.
Okay.
Enoch saw he didn't have much choice. So he bent down in front of the cast iron safe. He started fiddling with the dial. The other outlaw, the short one, he was standing beside the desk. He reached out his free hand. He picked up one of Hiram's ore sacks.
I hear something, man. Feels pretty heavy, too.
You let that alone, mister.
All right, take it easy.
That there ore belongs to me. You ain't got no right to it.
Guess you don't hear so good. I told you to take it easy.
You think you can bully me just because you're holding a .45?
No, Hiram.
Yeah, you've got another thing coming, young fella. I spent most of my life hunting that gold, and you ain't gonna walk in here and swipe it. You just let it be your...
The next thing I knew, Hiram gave a leap forward. I tried to stop him, but it was too late. For a second, he just kept on moving. A step or two. Then his legs buckled, and he grabbed the edge of the desk. But his fingers couldn't hold the grip. Both the outlaws were staring at Hiram. They weren't watching me. Get down, Enoch. My bullet hit the short one in the arm. The gun flew halfway across the office. And the other one spun around and knocked over the kerosene lamp. I got off a second shot. It was so dark, I wasn't sure I'd hit anything or not. For a couple of minutes, there wasn't a sound. Nothing but heavy breathing. I stretched out my hand, and I felt a chair. I waited a second, and then I gave it a good hard push. He sure had good ears. The bullet splintered into the chair before it even toppled over. But the flash of his gun showed me where he was. Crouched right behind the safe, out of range. I edged over to the right. If I could just get past the window without him seeing me. I made a dive, fired. Enoch lit up another lamp. The boy that was shot in the arm, he hadn't passed out. He was just lying there, staring at me. Looking even younger than he had when he first came into the office. The other fella, he'd taken a bullet in the shoulder, and he was bleeding pretty bad. But Hiram, he was worse off than either of them. He was flat on his back, gasping for breath. There was a big red splotch on his chest, and his mouth was covered with sort of a pink foam, like... It's a good thing Doc Nibble's house was in the next block. Well, Doc?
Oh. It's too early to tell anything yet, Britt. I got the bullet out, and it's still hemorrhaging.
I see.
And them other two, they'll be as good as ever in a week or so. Good enough for a hanging if Hiram don't pull through.
Oh, no, he's just got to pull through, Doc.
He's an old man, Britt. I've seen fellas a lot younger.
Yeah?
Well, you better get yourself some rest. It's almost 4 a.m.
Well, I thought maybe...
Well, there's nothing you can do here. Ain't a chance of him coming to before morning.
I was standing right beside him when it happened. I could have drawn, maybe, and then...
Maybe then you'd both be shut up. And I'll see you in the morning, Britt.
I went back to the hotel, but I just couldn't sleep. About 6:30, I gave up trying. I figured it was too soon to find out how Hiram was doing, so I went for a little walk around town. I wasn't very hungry, but as long as Mike's Cafe was open, I thought I just might as well stop in for a cup of coffee. And I was just going through the door when Enoch Wilson came up running.
Britt.
Yeah. Good morning, Enoch.
hoping I'd run into you. Stopped by the hotel, but they said you was out.
Yeah, I was sort of looking the town over.
I just left Hiram.
Oh, well, he's not...
No. It sure don't look good.
Oh?
Doc Nibble says he's got a good, strong constitution for a man his age. He'd have a pretty fair chance. But Hiram just don't seem to have any fight left in him. Ain't even trying to live.
Well, has he come to?
Yeah, about an hour ago. I happened to be there. You see, I went back to the office after that gunfight last night and finished up Hiram's assay.
Oh?
Well, I thought maybe if it turned out to be something good, well, I wanted Hiram to know about it before he...
Oh, yeah. Well, that was mighty thoughtful of you, Enoch.
Yeah, and it is good, Britt. A real strike.
Well, didn't you tell Hiram?
Oh, sure. But it didn't seem to make no difference to him. He just nodded and sort of dozed off like he didn't even care.
Is that so?
Doc don't understand it neither. You'd think, if anything, it'd make him want to live. Knowing he found gold sure turned the trick.
Yeah, you sure would.
Maybe he figures I'm lying to him because he's so bad off.
Uh-huh. Well, I guess it could be that.
Yeah. So we thought, Doc and me, we thought, maybe if he was to hear it from you, well...
Oh, sure, Enoch. I'll go right over there, sure. Hello, Hiram. How you feeling?
Oh, pretty good, Britt. I'm pretty good.
Oh, well, the doc says you're going to be all right real soon, too.
Yes.
Sure. Of course, you've got to help him along some, He can't cure you single-handed,
Oh, it don't matter, Britt. Just don't matter.
Oh, now, what are you talking about, Hiram? Well, I figured you'd be jumping up and down, fighting your way out of bed when you heard the news.
You mean about the gold?
Sure. Enoch said he told you.
Yes. He told me.
Well, you believe him, don't you, Hiram?
Well, I shouldn't have believed him. I knew it was the real thing when I first found it. I knew it was real. Still, maybe that was the sign.
The sign? What?
That my life's over.
Well,
45 years I spent looking for that yellow stuff. Well, now I finally found it. I ain't got no reason to go on looking, no reason at all. I found it. I'm awful tired, Britt. I'm awful tired.
But you're going to be a rich man, Hiram.
Oh, I wasn't hunting gold because it was making me rich, Britt. Or maybe when I was younger I was reading, but lately, these past few years, I just wanted to prove to folks that I knew what I was talking about. So that I wasn't touched like they thought.
No, of course you are.
Those ore samples prove it, Britt, so it ain't going to be too hard to die. Ain't going to be hard at all. I've done what I set out to do, so I reckon I'm luckier than most men.
Well, that's one way of looking at it, I guess.
Yeah, it just goes to show you things work out for the best, Britt. For the best.
Yeah. Well, maybe Enoch did the right thing after all, so...
What's that?
Oh, nothing, Hiram, nothing. Now, you better get some rest.
You started to say something about Enoch.
Did I?
Yes, finish it up, Britt. What was that you were going to say?
What I was going to say? Well, now, you're a pretty sick man, Hiram. I wouldn't want to get you all upset.
Upset? What are you driving at, Britt?
Well, you're weak and feeble, and it wasn't my idea, of course.
Well, you don't mean that Enoch was lying to me, that ore wasn't full of gold?
Now, I didn't say that.
I know Enoch Wilson couldn't be trusted, so that's true about my strike.
Now,
so they figured I was going to die, and then they'd all have the laugh on me. But I ain't going to be that obliging. I'll get well if it kills me. And I'll find gold, too, right out there in those mountains where I always said I'd find it. Oh, they think they're going to soft-soap me into kicking the bucket, don't they? Oh, they do. Well, Britt, you just tell them different.
I'd be glad to, Hiram. I sure would be glad to. Well, by the time Hiram got well and found out he was responsible for a genuine gold rush, there just wasn't much he could do about it. And the way the money poured in, and faster than Hiram could spend it, no matter how hard he tried, he sure went in for some fly-by-night schemes, too. Like that with that organizing a prospecting expedition to go up to Alaska in some place called the Klondike, I think it was, something like that. Everybody knew he'd never find gold up in a place like that because they're all expecting him to come back any day now. Admit that it was just a wild goose chase. But he hasn't shown up last time I was through Clay City. Folks are beginning to wonder what's keeping him.
The Six Shooter is a transcribed NBC Radio Network production in association with Review Productions. It is based on a character created by Frank Britt and is written by him. Mr. Stewart may soon be seen in the Universal International picture, The Glenn Miller Story. Others in the cast were Herb Vigran, Bill Johnstone, Barney Phillips, Tony Barrett, and Howard McNear, who played Hiram. Special music for this program was by Basil Adlam, and the entire production is under the direction of Jack Johnstone. All characters and incidents were fictitious, and any resemblance to actual characters or incidents is purely coincidental. This is Hal Gibney speaking.
Gotta love you some Howard McNear. He brings a flavor to it, doesn't he? Jimmy Stewart is the Six Shooter 68 years ago today, January 10th, 1954. A reminder to come visit my webpage, classicradio.stream. That's classicradio.stream. There you can stream our shows, learn more about classic radio collecting. You can find our social media links, and you can contact me there as well. classicradio.stream. Don't forget that our programs are available anywhere podcasts are served by searching for Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. That's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. You can find them anywhere podcasts are served, including Apple Podcast, Google Podcast. You can find them through Spotify and Spreaker as well. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. And my best of shows going back about 20 years. Those are Wyatt's favorite radio, so you can find those as well. I'm Wyatt Cox. Thanks for tuning in. Thank this radio station. Support their advertisers. Tell your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater here on your favorite radio station.